Amelia was born on June 17th of 2017 and lived in Cambridge with her mom. She was a happy toddler who loved Sesame Street, Trolls, and playing with her dolls. She loved to spend time with her doting grandmother Deborah, who envisioned a bright future for Amelia. Unfortunately, Amelia's mother struggled with addictions to opioids, and sadly, when Amelia was 20 months old, on February 21st, 2019, she died of a carfentanil overdose. People can die from an opioid overdose at any age. This is Amelia's story.
Um, so in behind me is a garden, and that is Amelia's garden. So when Amelia was born, I was there. I got to cut her umbilical cord. And of course, because my daughter was actively using, she volunteered to work with Family and Children's Services, so Children's Aid. And I became Amelia's safety plan. And so my daughter and Amelia moved in with myself and my husband. And, you know, uh, Amelia had to actually stay in the hospital for 6 to 8 weeks because she needed to be weaned off of opioids. And that was really hard. It was really difficult. It was very strenuous to live in a hospital because you didn't get to sleep properly, you didn't get to eat properly, none of those things. But she was addicted because her mother had to be on the methadone clinic or the methadone program. So Amelia was already at a disadvantage when it came to opioids. And but they moved in, and they both thrived. They both thrived really, really, really well. And Amelia was just so well behaved. And that's because she had three full-time parents, right? She had her mother, she had her grandmother, and she had her grandfather. Plus, then his father also was is remarried, and um, so she had another set of grandparents, and it was really nice. And then she had great grandparents, and so yeah, so she had a lot of people to love her, and I took her everywhere with me, like everywhere. And whenever we would hear another child crying in a grocery store or any kind of store, I would say to her, "Do you hear that baby crying?" And she would say, she didn't actually talk yet because she was only 20 months old. And she would shake her head, yeah. And I said, "Is that how we behave?" And I would, and she'd be like, "No." And then I would say to her, when we want something, and it's going to make us upset if we don't get it, we need to ask for it. And as I was telling her, you always ask Granny, and Granny will, see if she can get it for you. And then another lady in a different line says, "Will you be my Granny?" So yeah, so she didn't talk, but she communicated very, very well. And she loved the movie The Trolls. Oh my gosh. She would sit and watch that movie, and she would, dance and, do the whatever, right? And she knew, we're going to sing, we're going to dance, we're going to hug. And oh yeah, she knew exactly who the characters were. And yeah, she would watch that movie and just watch it like a full movie. And then I would ask her, "You want to watch it again?" Yep. So she would sit and she would watch it again, just over and over and over, which, for a child her age is very, very unusual, because usually that happens when they're a little bit older, but at like 16, 14 months, and she's just mesmerized by this movie. So when she got a little bit older, I thought I would, mix it up a little bit. So I bought Frozen, and we sat down and we started watching it. And I thought, oh goodness, I haven't watched this. I didn't pre-watch it, so I didn't know what was going to happen in this movie. But it was a Disney, so I figured, it can't be that scary. So we're watching it, and all of a sudden that ice monster comes out, and we're sitting on a little love seat, and she's on one side and I'm on the other side, and I can see that she's getting scared. And so she crawls over and snuggles right up to my side. And so I looked at her and I said, "Are you scared?" And she just sort of, was scared. And so I said, "You don't worry about that nasty monster. He is a nasty monster, but it's just a movie and he's not real." And then I said, "And he's not going to hurt anybody." And then I'm thinking in my head, oh my gosh, you haven't watched this movie. You don't know if he's going to hurt anybody. And then I'm thinking, this guy better not hurt anybody. Otherwise, he has just made Granny into a liar. So, yeah, yeah, just but he didn't hurt anybody, and she sat and she watched, and yeah. And then I have videos of her, we were big on reading to her, and so I have videos of her opening her books and reading, and of course she didn't talk yet, and of course she's 20 months old, so she can't read. And but you could tell she was reading, and you would say to her, "Are you hungry?" And she would nod her head, "Okay." And then I said, "Get in your high chair." And she would climb into her high chair and put her seatbelt on. And oh my goodness, she just was a dream child. Yeah. Yeah. Just incredible. She was my pride and joy, my little precious princess. And I miss her a lot. Amelia's mother suffers from substance use disorder, and she relapsed. And she abruptly moved out, and she took Amelia with her. And she was using, and then she put it in her pocket and zipped the pocket closed. And Amelia climbed up on her lap while she was passed out, opened the zipper, and saw what she thought was candy. And so she started eating it.
You don't have to get too much into detail if it's too hard to talk about.
It's okay. It's important. So Amelia died of carfentanil, not fentanyl, carfentanil. And carfentanil is an elephant tranquilizer. And she died instantly. And even though I get no comfort from anything to do with Amelia's death, she just went to sleep. She didn't suffer. And when the toxicology report came back. She had carfentanil, fentanyl, and several other types of opioids. But what killed her was the carfentanil. And carfentanil is, I believe, 100 times stronger than fentanyl. And fentanyl is 1,000 times stronger than heroin. And a lethal dose of fentanyl is, I believe, 0.052. And Amelia had 8 of carfentanil, which is 100 times stronger than fentanyl. So, yeah, she died of an astronomical amount of carfentanil. And nothing would have brought her back, because
So,
they did try. They
yeah,
tried very hard.
yeah. And obviously the Amelia's death really affected you and your family members. But if you're comfortable sharing how it affected you guys.
Well, when you have a death of a child, it is extremely difficult, because it is not the natural cycle of life. We are not supposed to bury our children, and we certainly aren't supposed to bury our grandchildren. And for me, it was really difficult, because Amelia died at the hand of her mother, which is also my daughter. And even though I know that my daughter would never hurt Amelia, I also know that when my daughter is using, she no longer is my daughter. And that sometimes is the most difficult piece for people to understand. When you take opioids, they completely alter your brain function. They stop your ability to develop. So, although Amelia's mother is in her 30s, her brain capacity is really a teenager, because it stops. And they warned us in the hospital that my daughter would relapse. And the relapse rate is approximately 95%. So if you think you're not going to get addicted, and you think you'll be able to get into recovery, you've got a 95% chance of relapsing, even after you have a child, which is the most important thing in your life, the most perfect thing in your life, the thing that saves your life and gets you out of that lifestyle. So if even a child can't stop you from relapsing, yeah, it's just it's horrible. I haven't been able to work in over 3 years, and I have to take medication for my anxiety. I suffer from severe paranoia, and I no longer am the same person I was prior to Amelia's death. And that person is probably never ever coming back. And I rarely leave the house. I mean, I do leave the house, and I try and force myself to leave the house. And when I say leave the house, I don't leave the property. Like, I go outside, but I stay on the property. And I'm usually sitting in Amelia's garden and yeah, talking to her, telling her how much I love her, and yeah. And I just pretend she's there listening. And it gives me comfort, and that's what's important. But yeah.
If looking back, if you could change one thing, what do you think it would have been?
I would have definitely hoped that I could have gotten my daughter some more help, so that she might not have turned to drugs in the first place. And I definitely wish that I could have saved Amelia somehow. And because I do love that little girl. And it's not just that I've lost a grandchild. How is my daughter supposed to recover from this? So when you lose a grandchild, you bear the grief of your child and your grandchild. And so, yeah. And then, not to mention that both Amelia's parents were incarcerated. So I had to get a lawyer to have her released from the coroner's office. And yeah, it was just really, really, it has been a really horrific roller coaster of emotions. You know, you don't ever get over a death of a child. Never. And you just try and learn how to go on.
Do you think this was something that any of the healthcare professionals had ever seen?
Oh, no, it's not. Like Amelia's death? No,
Yeah.
Amelia was the first. She was definitely the first in this area. And in fact, in 3 years, 2 more children the same age as her have also passed away from opioid. And these aren't children that they're not old enough to choose. This is something that the drug just takes over you. And you don't have any control over your life anymore. Like, that's the important part. You don't get to control your life anymore. And they put fentanyl in everything because it's cheap. It's cheap to make. And yeah. And the drug supply is poisoned. It is poisoned. Like, you think my daughter knew she was getting carfentanil? She could have died as well. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much at all. And if you think that you're going to be able to just take it and not get addicted, you're going to get addicted. That's a given. And it will haunt you your entire life. It will scratch. The drugs, the urge to have the drugs will scratch at you every day. You know, like a strobe light. That's how often the drug will say, take me, take me, take me, take me.
What advice would you give to youth concerning opioids?
Stay away from them completely. It's not worth it. It is not worth it at all. I lost everything. And my daughter has said, Amelia saved my life. And the drugs took hers. You know, I have one daughter. I have one son and I have one daughter. I have a daughter who is in recovery. And I have a daughter who is not in recovery. One body, two completely different people. And it's awful to watch someone trying to recuperate from one bad decision, and that is to take drugs. And because it takes over, it completely takes over your life. It alters your brain function. Yeah. You know, when you see those, I don't know if you've ever seen the commercials where it's saying, you know, the picture of a woman and, you know, she's beautiful. And then you see another picture of her a few years later after she's been using drugs. And you can see her skin isn't beautiful anymore. And her hair doesn't look nice. And, you know, then you see a picture again in a few more years. So, and now she just, you know, she's lost all color in her face. She's missing teeth. Her hair is, you know, all fallen out in a mess. And she just looks terrible. That's what drugs do to you. Again, because they alter your brain function.
I was just wondering if there's any videos or pictures that you'd be comfortable sharing with us.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Absolutely. I never even thought of that. Yes, absolutely. I can send you pictures. I can send you a picture of Amelia with her Cookie Monster on the couch. So there's 3 pictures I have. Her bedtime routine was I would take her upstairs. I would get her changed and ready for bed, and then she would sit and she would watch TV with Grandpa. And usually, you know, something like Sesame Street or something like that, right? And then I would go make her bottle and everything, and then I'd come back upstairs and we'd hug Grandpa goodnight and we'd hug Granny goodnight. And then we'd go into her room and I would always ask her, do you want your bottle or do you want your sucky? And she would always take her sucky, her soother. And then she'd lay down, and I'd turn her little fish aquarium on so that, she'd get the little bubbles to help her fall asleep or make her pee, one or the other. And put her blanket on, and then I would leave. I'd leave the room, and she would not make a sound. And I'd go back in a couple hours later. Her bottle would be empty, back where it was. Her sucky would be back in her mouth, and her blanket would be exactly how I left it on her. And I would be thinking, like, how does she do this? How does she drink her bottle, put her bottle right back where it was, and get her blankets all back on her? But that's what she did. And so I have pictures of her with her Cookie Monster, and she's hugging him. She's giving him her sucky. So she's taking the sucky out of her mouth, giving it and putting it into Cookie Monster, and then placing him on the pillow. And it, watching her do that, oh my gosh, it's like they're such sponges, right? Like they just, everything that you do in front of them, they learn, right? And then I have another beautiful story about her. So as we were saying about, I would ask her if, that is how we behave when we're in the store. She was starting to have temper tantrums, she was getting to that age. And I was teaching her, that's not how we behave. If we want something or if we need something, we ask for it. So we did that like 2 or 3 times, I would say that to her. And so we're at Walmart, and I'm trying to get new drinking cups for her that are going to be age appropriate for her. And lo and behold, don't I find a set of Poppy from the Trolls sippy cups. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I, of course, grab them. And as soon as I grab them, I realized that they're a little bit too old for her. They just have holes. It's not really a sippy. So if she drops her cup, which is what she's going to do, the juice is going to all come out everywhere. So I am about to put them back on the shelf. And in this ear, so I'm putting them back on the shelf with my left hand, and in my right ear, and she's right in front of me, I hear her just talking very calmly. And so she's talking in her baby language. So I look at her, and she's looking at me, pointing at the cups, looking at me, and she is just right. And so I'm thinking to myself, she wants these cups. And she's telling me exactly what I have been teaching her. When you want something, you ask for it. So now I'm thinking to myself, if I do not give her these cups, all of my teachings of her not to have a temper tantrum are out the window. So of course, she gets the cups. So yeah. But I most definitely, I can share videos of her reading her book. And yeah, absolutely. And pictures of her. Yes, absolutely. I can put my video off and you could see her. She's in her pink Barbie Cadillac Escalade car. And, she's got her elbow out the window, and oh my goodness. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to, now that I'm just thinking about this pink Cadillac Escalade, I wanted to say that addiction has no boundaries whatsoever. Amelia could have had anything she ever wanted, and my daughter. I mean, we're not millionaires or anything like that, but we were in a good place financially, because we're grandparents. And, you've had those years to establish yourself. So we weren't struggling, and neither were they. And so that's why I say, it doesn't just um, happen to poor people or, underprivileged people. It happens to anybody. It knows no boundaries. So yeah,
And
but yeah, most definitely, I will definitely send you guys video and stuff. Yeah. Oh, and
um,
Amelia was so compassionate. Oh my goodness. So all the grandchildren were over, and she would have been just a little over a year. And one of the boys was having a temper tantrum, so he got put for a timeout, and he was crying. He was just a little bit older than she was. And yeah, she would walk over to him, and she put her hand on his shoulder, and she would tilt her head and look at him, and trying to comfort him so he would stop crying. And yeah, she just yeah, she was something special, most definitely. And you know as much as I'm never going to get over her death, I am definitely grateful for the 20 months that did get to have with her. Absolutely. Yeah. My pride and joy.
and I was just wondering, how long ago did this whole thing happen with Amelia?
So Amelia died in February of 2019. So it's been 3 years. And as you can see, I'm not getting over it. You don't ever get over the loss of a child. Never. And yeah. And it's not just me. It's like a lot of people. I created a book from all the cards. Um, we received when, just to say how sorry they were for, our loss and their loss. And yeah, I made a book with all the cards. It was 3 full days of nonstop crying to make that book. And now I look at that book, and it's because it's a memorial of Amelia, it just fills my heart with joy. But making the book was, yeah, it was so difficult. And but it needed to be done, and I'm glad I did it, because now that gives me so much joy. And of course, I have her garden. We have a fireplace mantle that's a shrine of Amelia. And I have a small little urn that I carry in my purse of her. So she's always with me, like she always was. And yeah, I do a lot of things. I make her a cake every day, or every year for her birthday. And yeah, we sing happy birthday to her. And yeah, it usually has, a lot of cheesecake and chocolate pudding and strawberries and jello. and yeah, and then I decorate it with the trolls. And I have a whole set of troll decorations that I can put on the cake for her. And yeah, and then we sing happy birthday to her every June.